Mr. President. Wow. Thank you, Mr. President. You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not ordinary.
So let's talk. Donald Trump can pull off political stunts like working in McDonald's because A, he understands he doesn't belong there. We understand he doesn't belong there. But B, you can tell his respect for normal people. He does this everywhere he goes. He doesn't look down on you. It's one of his great benefits. And you know, I'm more than willing to criticize him when he's wrong or his flaws. But one of his great benefits is he's never been ashamed of you. He doesn't look down on you. Ordinary people like you, like me, who eat at McDonald's, I eat at McDonald's, he gets us. He knows what a quarter pounder smells like. He gets us. He's not beneath that. And the reaction, it's not just what Donald Trump did, but it's the reaction from the left. That is what is so telling about where we are as a country. Here's just a little sample of it.
What is the logic behind this, going to a McDonald's? I mean, we know the guy likes Big Macs and filet of fish, and he's used the word love to describe the way he feels about the food there before. But what's this about?
There's no logic to it. It's a stunt. He has not put forth an economic agenda. He, as you know, appears to be not well. And he's engaged in some really bizarre types of activities during this campaign. We know who Donald Trump is. Just look at him and what he's doing. And is this presidential? I mean, this is not what the country needs in terms of the leader of the free world and in terms of a person who's going to ensure our national security and peace and security in the world. Come on.
We had this talk before, but we're going to have to talk again really briefly here because I know we have a bunch of guests to get to. Bianca Della Garza is coming up. We have so many wonderful guests and things like that to do tonight. But our country, think of it like a big ball of Play-Doh. Stay with me. Big ball of Play-Doh, right? You know what Play-Doh is. And the leadership of this country, the elites of this country, they're part of it, right? You're part of it. I'm part of it. The elites are part of it. Everything's part of it. We're all in part of this big ball of Play-Doh. And Democrats, communists, have consumed and taken over all of our leadership institutions, all of them. They own the schools and the media and corporate America, and they have occupied and infected it like the cancer they are, and now they consume all those things. And that's bad, of course, that's bad. But there is a negative for them as well, you see. They took over all the institutions, and in so doing, they thought that they were the entire ball of Play-Doh. But they are not. They are not. You see, the citizens still matter too. And since they have so isolated themselves in these institutions, they are this little ball that is pulling away from the big ball. They think they should control the whole ball, but they do not, you see. They don't even know how to relate to the normal people in the big ball of Play-Doh. And try as hard as they try, and the harder they try to pull us away and pull us in their direction, they're not completely succeeding. What they're doing is, just like a ball of Play-Doh, they are slowly but surely breaking themselves from us to the point they don't even understand how we live. They don't understand how to relate to anything. This is completely unrelated, but I'll bring it back in a moment. There was a moment, Lizzo, she's some singer, who cares who she is, she was at a rally in Detroit for Kamala Harris, and she dropped this little line. Listen to this.
This is how a bad saves democracy. You couldn't even spell democracy. Ha! You know, they say if Kamala wins, then the whole country will be like Detroit. Okay? Proud like Detroit.
Detroit. What's Detroit for Lizzo? It's private jets. You ever flown on a private jet? Because of what I do, I've gotten to 3 times, 4 times. Never mind, I don't have any private jet, but you know what it's like to fly on a private jet? You don't go to the normal airport. You may use the same runways, but you go to a completely separate area. You drive up. I remember the first time I drove up, and you have to press this little intercom. It's all locked in. And they buzz you in. Yes, Mr. Kelly, of course. You drive your plane right out to the airplane, or you drive your car right out to the airplane, and all the attendants swarm you like you're really important. I'm sitting there, I have no idea what's going on, and they grab your luggage and throw you on the plane, and you get on this plane, and would you like a drink, Mr. Kelly? How about some snacks, Mr. Kelly? Are you ready to go, Mr. Kelly? And you take off, and then you land in Detroit. That's where Lizzo lands in her private jet. She lands in Detroit, and she's whisked away by her armored SUV's bodyguards onto a 5-star hotel, eating at a 5-star steakhouse, goes to perform in some big arena surrounded by screaming fans and security. We love you, Lizzo! And then on her way back to her private airfield where she gets on her private jet, Lizzo looks out the window and thinks she has now experienced Detroit. Again, that's not how the people of Detroit actually live. These people have no idea how to even relate to you. They have pulled away so badly, they're lost. It's why when people shouted at Kamala Harris, Jesus is king or Jesus is Lord, I forget what it was at the rally, this is why she, just her instinct, she responded like this.
Christ is king. Jesus is Lord.
No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
I just can't relate at all. Good for us, bad for them. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. Bubble thinking is comfortable, but dangerous. I've told you before, I've created a bubble intentionally in my own life. I don't want to live around scumbags. I don't want to live around communists. I've done all these things before. So I'm in blood red Texas. I only hire blood red people to work with me, and I'm only friends with those types of people. But there's a danger in that. You don't talk to any normal people. Salena Zito does. She is my friend. She's probably the best journalist in the country, to be honest with you. SalenaZito.com is where you can find her work. And she travels the Rust Belt, swing states. She's in diners. She's in bed and breakfast. She's talking to people. So let's see what Salena has to say about the election. Salena, you walk into these cafes. I vote on much different things than these people do. Why do these people vote the way they vote, however they're voting?
Well, people vote, I think this is largely missed. They vote about their pocketbook. They vote about their family's future, and their family's ability to be prosperous. And part of prosperity for people that live in the middle of the country doesn't have anything to do with making a lot of money. It has to do with the ability to stay connected to family, to live down the street from your parents or your grandparents. That has value that I think a lot of journalists miss. They don't understand that could be more important than working in a larger city and making more money, right? And so safety and security, those are all driving reasons in this election cycle. And that always is, but what party is taking you to a better place is the one that's winning that argument. And right now, that is the Republican Party. The Republican Party looks very, very different from when I was younger. It was more the country club, the free traders, right? Internationalism. That's not the case anymore. The Republican Party has become, even though it has still retains its conservative tenets, it is also the party now of work. People that work for a living, people that get their hands dirty or have trade skills or artisans. That I will argue that the person that ends up deciding this election, this cycle, will be the waitress that waits on you where you go to have dinner, the welder, the plumber that fixes your house, the HVAC. That is where the movement of this country right now and the movement of this race.
Okay, so let's pause on that for a moment. I actually want to go back to journalists and journalism. You said that's the thing they miss. Why? What is it with that field in general? And I realize there are some good ones, not many, but what is it with that field? How do they miss that? Are journalists, and I'm not talking down about anybody who has money, are they all rich kids? Like, what is it? Do they have broken families? What is it about journalists where they don't see that and feel that?
Well, part of the larger problem is as smaller newspapers die off, people that used to cover you, that sat in the same pew with you in church, or, coached your kids' little league, as those entities have diminished, the rise of the national press has had more dominance in what we read. And the problem with that is it's not that they are bad people. It's just that they don't know the people they are now tasked with reporting on. They often live in the 10 super zip codes, 10 most wealthiest counties that are also the center of power in New York, in Washington, and in California. And so they don't know and understand the people that they're reporting on. So when they go to report in a place like where I live in Western Pennsylvania, it's very foreign and different to them. And they don't know how to relate to it, but also write about it in a way that doesn't make them look like they're freaks.
Okay, so let's move to the Kamala Harris voter, because let's be honest, it's Lord willing not going to be 50%, but it's going to be close to half the country. They're going to go vote for Kamala Harris. And there are people in these swing states, many of them, who will vote for Kamala Harris. Why? What drives them? I don't talk to these people.
So a lot of why they are voting for Harris is twofold. First of all, there are what you call yellow dog Democrats, where they will vote for a Democrat no matter what. There is a portion of that. But there also are a lot of people who have benefited under Trump's policies in his previous administration, but dislike him so vehemently that they will vote against him. So it's not as though they are voting for her. It is as though they were voting against him. So what does this tell me as a journalist? It tells me that this country is more center-right than we understand. That if it were not for Trump on the top of the ticket for some people, they would be voting for Republican and likely will vote and split their tickets in local elections and maybe even a Senate or governor's race. So, that is her problem, is that she is polling like a generic Democrat. So the votes for her that hover near 50% are actually votes against Trump, because there are people who do not like his comportment.
Okay, so I was going to ask, what is it about Donald Trump they dislike? I mean, personality-wise, I realize he's a strong personality, so it's not as if there's a shortage of things that people may chafe on. What is it? Is it the name calling? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that, but also my profession has done an extraordinary job of demonizing him, of making him out to be this bad guy, right? Like there's the bad guy and the good guy, and they have made him out to be the bad guy. And for intellectual elites, that makes them feel superior, and they're voting justly because they're voting against the bad guy, even if they're voting against their own self-interest. And look, there's not a person that I don't know, that you don't know, that probably all of your listening audience doesn't know, that is a wisecracking real estate developer that they've been on the golf course with, or sat in the stands with their kids at baseball, or whatever they've known them in their lives. And mostly they like them because they're characters, but they also know they come from a good place, and that their rough edges are just part of them being characters. Not that they are deeply, deeply evil. They just have flaws the way the rest of us do.
Salena, you were at that rally in Butler where Donald Trump almost got his head blown off.
Yeah.
Obviously, the national media has tried to move on from that for understandable reasons, but has that resonated in Pennsylvania? Is there a sense of anger, embarrassment, sadness? What sense do you get from people there about that?
So you probably don't see it because you're not in Pennsylvania, but it has had a profound effect on people because it has made them take a look at this race in a very different way, and made them take a look at him, but also the incompetence of government that he has been talking about for 8 years, and makes them rethink, well, maybe he had a point. Maybe we should restructure things. Maybe we should, start from scratch. And so if he wins Pennsylvania on election night, which he is trending to do right now, it will have a lot to do with different layers of impact that he has had, that moment has had on the psyche of the state.
That's interesting. Okay, we don't talk much about Wisconsin and Michigan, and I think a lot of that is because the Trump campaign is very clearly focused on Pennsylvania. They think they win the Sun Belt, they win Pennsylvania, he's the president, and they're not wrong about that. But Michigan, Wisconsin, he might break those off?
Oh, no, I don't think he's written those off at all. And I think that they understand if they win Pennsylvania, they're more than likely winning Michigan and Wisconsin as well, because Pennsylvania is just a scooch more Democrat than those two states are.
How about that? Salena, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll be back.
So many of the conservatives feel this way secretly about Donald Trump. Why not just take the hit for 4 years, let him lose, and then get your party back? Why do we keep defending this person that everyone clearly doesn't respect?
And most Republicans don't think they could survive 4 more years of Kamala Harris as a country.
In what way?
Open borders, 6 million people coming across the border. We did have high inflation, horrible foreign policy, wars across the globe that didn't happen while Trump was president. There was the reshoring of manufacturing.
Okay, I'm not going to let you do that.
I mean, I could sit there and do the whole.
I could do the whole thing too, but we're not going to do that.
Or is it that, or is it just about raw political power?
I love how she cut him off. I love watching Ryan Girdusky's star rise. I'm not surprised in the least that I'm about 100% sure he's going to get fired from being on these CNN panels if he keeps abusing all these crazy libs the way he's been. Joining me now, my friend Ryan Girdusky, founder of the 1776 Project PAC, of which I am a fan. Ryan, you know you're going to get canned from there, right? You keep abusing these dirty libs on there, they're not going to invite you back.
We'll see if they if they don't bring me back on, because a bunch of conservatives really loved my segment. So we'll see. I mean, listen, I told CNN when they asked me to start coming on, I said, listen, if you're looking for the Republican who apologizes for being a Republican, it ain't me. And they said, we're not looking for that. So they knew what they were getting. And I think I've done a pretty good job. It's definitely every segment I've done has had interest because, the conflict makes people want to watch. And it's not the same thing every time.
Yeah, no, it's very well. You're made for it. You do really well. Do you get the sense in that room and in the green room, and I know you've been in these places, do you get the sense they are confident about where they are, or do you get the sense that they have this feeling of dread and they're compensating?
About Kamala specifically?
Mm-hmm. Kamala.
Well, some of them are extremely confident that Kamala would win. In a different episode that I was on, one guy he'd ridden off Arizona, but he was like, "No, we're surging in the Rust Belt. We're gonna be fine. She's gonna win. Election day party in D.C." And you just like, okay. Other ones, they're more. I mean, it's a tight election. There is a little bit of anxiety. Definitely Trump has had a lot of momentum in the last week, so. It just depends on the person. I think that a bunch of them are very, very nervous, and I think the attacks against Trump are becoming so extreme because they are nervous.
One thing I have found fascinating is Democrats and their focus on Michigan and how they try to focus on Michigan. They're very concerned about losing Jewish voters. They're very concerned about losing Jewish donations, which they are massive in politics for sure, especially in the Democrat Party. They're concerned about losing Muslim votes. It's this weird religious thing, and actually this was on CNN as well.
I've been talking to people in the business sector in the Arab American community, and I was really surprised this week to get an earful to hear them say that they would much rather either vote a third party, not vote at all, or vote for Donald Trump. And I'm telling you, it's not obviously a significant sample size, but I cannot find one Arab American within my social circle in business or personally who have said that they will vote for Kamala Harris.
Okay, Ryan, you want to explain that to me? I've seen the tightrope Democrats have tried to walk with the whole Israel-Hamas thing, but man, what happened here?
Oh, you could feel the air being sucked out of the room when she said that. It was it was something else. Yeah, I think that for a lot of, there's a lot of Muslim business owners, especially small business owners, and Tiffany Trump's father-in-law, I did not know this, is a Lebanese businessman who apparently is doing a lot of work to promote Trump among Muslim business owners. I was unaware until that reporting. The other thing is that I think there is no confidence among Muslim Americans that Kamala Harris will end the war in Israel, and whether, their feelings on Palestine are very mixed. Their feelings on Iran are mixed. It's not a universal opinion, but there is an overwhelming demand to stop the attacks and the killings among civilians. Now, obviously, on the Jewish side, there's a demand to sit there and release the hostages. I understand it, but they think that Trump could end the war, and Kamala can't. And there's also, and I mentioned this in that segment, some Muslims are playing for the long term. If Kamala loses, right, and she loses specifically because of Muslims in Michigan, there is going to be a change in the Democratic Party in how they approach Israel in the future because of our immigration rates and because of the way we do immigration. There will be more Muslims than there are Jews in America in a very, very near future. And that means that in the raw votes, they will have to make a judgment, which side are we on? And especially on these issues around Israel, that will absolutely sit there and change the way Democratic politics work in the near future. Will change, any chance Josh Shapiro has of being a Democratic nominee in the future. That all absolutely plays into the future of Democratic politics. Not to mention, by the way, one other small subset is the woke stuff in schools really doesn't play well with Muslims. Really have a problem with it. There's been a number of Muslim parents in school boards who were like, we do not want this stuff in our schools. They don't even want sex education in their schools. So the woke liberal of importance or of victimhood, they did not assume that Muslims would not be on board with the LGBTQAI2A+ community. So shocker. I know, but they're really being surprised that everyone doesn't just love each other constantly.
What a shock. I thought they would sign on for all that. Okay, so I didn't know we were going to travel down this path, but I find it fascinating. So what do they do with the fact they do need and rest not largely on, but it is a huge part of political donations for Democrats, Jewish donors. Jewish donors are oftentimes, many of the mega donors on the Democrat side are people who are Jewish, and they're not going to sign on for the Arab Party, the Hamas Party. I know this is a concern. Where do they go?
I think there's two things. I've met Jewish donors who were lifelong Democrats who after October 7th said to me, look, we made all the wrong friends. We played the wrong hand. There was a very, very strong movement, I would say, or strong thought process among liberal Jews that their real enemy were white Christians, that white Christians were the ones who really, that they had to live in fear of white Christians. And some of them doubled down after October 7th, and some of them saw the light. And then there are other ones. There are other just liberal Jews who just don't care about Israel. They're just liberals. They're liberal Americans. It means nothing to them. And then there's also some. I had a conversation with one of my friends who's a celebrity, and he's very close friends with a major Jewish celebrity, who called him and said, like the major said to him, and I'm not going to name names, but said to him, I'm worried. Like, why do they hate me so much? What is going? Well, I thought that I was on their side, and I think there is a ironically a come to Jesus moment among Jews, but a come to Jesus moment where a lot of them are sitting there and saying, maybe we did make the wrong friends. Maybe this anti-Semitism stuff is real and it's palpable. And there was a certain thinking among liberal Jews, and it's, by the way, it's among liberal white people as well, where they were not culpable in the Great Awakening, that it would never come to them, that this was about, white conservatives. They were the problem. And a lot of these race activists are looking around and saying, no, we view you as white as well, and you are just as much of the problem. And Israel is a colonizer state, and all the nonsense and BS and lies you hear about America are being extended to Jews, being extended to Israel. And quite a number of them are sitting there and saying, wow, we've really bet on the wrong horse for a long time, and things need to change. And they need to change very, very fast. And, I said to one of them, October 7th was horrifying to see what we saw in Israel. October 8th in America made me sick to my stomach. Seeing people celebrate it in the United States made me sick beyond belief. But that is what we have imported through our immigration system, and that is what we have trained children to learn through our education system. And a number of them have sat there and said enough is enough. They've started pulling their donations out from universities, but I guarantee you the Democratic Party is not that far away, especially if they double down and say we need to win the Muslim vote at any opportunity we have, the same way they did with Latinos by pandering and saying that immigration was the only answer. And now we're seeing a record-breaking number of Latinos saying, close the border, start deporting illegal immigrants. Like, stuff needs to get done, because people aren't two-dimensional figures in cartoons the way that, white libs think they are. They have a lot of opinions about a lot of different issues.
Ryan, let's shift the focus away from this and the presidential race, because the down ballot races are critical, not just local, which you and I talk about often, but House, Senate. It's the least sexy thing in the world. Everyone wants to talk about Trump. Everyone wants to talk about Kamala right now. But Trump gets in there with a Democrat House, a Democrat Senate, can do very little, frankly. Where are we at on that?
Well, in the Senate, it looks almost certain that Republicans will have 51 Senate seats at least, because West Virginia is going to flip, and so is Montana. And as long as Ted Cruz can hold on, and as long as Fisher can hold on in Nebraska, which they probably both will, then the Senate will be Republican at least with 51 seats. And then you add the Ohio race and maybe a win in the Michigan or Wisconsin seat, and then you have 52 or 53. The House is much tougher. Whoever wins the majority in the presidency will win the House. The House is difficult because the majority of the House runs through blue states. You need Mike Garcia in California. You need Mike Lawler in New York. You need to hopefully win the House seat in Connecticut's 5th congressional district out in Northwest Connecticut. Those seats, the Illinois seat that they may flip this year, those seats are what's going to take the House from keep the House Republican or maybe make gains. You can't just sit there and win enough seats in the red states, because most of them are all picked. It's just a handful left. It is the purple seats in blue states that will decide the House's future.
Ryan, is there going to be a red wave?
I don't know. Things are looking good for Trump right now in Nevada and Arizona. Certainly participation among low propensity voters is very high. I don't know about that information from Pennsylvania. And Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin don't give out voter data by party because they don't register people by party. I will say the very interesting thing that I just read about in Georgia, 45% of new Georgia voters are over the age of 50. I think that people think of elections and states that they're stagnant. So 10,000 one way, 10,000 the other way. Obviously, there are people who are new citizens. There are people who turn 18. There are people who die. But the post-COVID migration that happened, I think is so substantial in some states, it will definitely see a big, big change. So the answer is, I don't know. There are certainly good trend signs for Republicans. Is it going to amount to a red wave? We have to wait till November to see.
Don't do that. I need concrete information now. I'm an antsy voter, Ryan.
I just gave
Thank you, brother. Thank you, my brother. We'll talk soon. All right. Dave Rubin joins us next.
You call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now
He's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
You know, I bought an expensive gun one time. I don't have a lot of expensive guns, but I bought an expensive gun one time. I ended up selling it. But I didn't even talk to the wife about it first. Not like I had to ask her, but I didn't even talk to her about it. And I knew that I was going to be asked about this very large charge on the credit card. And I at least had a decent response prepared for it. I have no idea how she did not have a response for any of these questions. Joining me now, my friend Dave Rubin, host of the Rubin Report. Dave, I know when I'm walking into a sticky situation and I'm going to have to answer tough questions that I should probably do some prep work beforehand. Does the Harris campaign not do this, or what?
Jesse, let's just put aside the issues that she's flip-flopped on. Let's put aside fracking. Yeah. Let's put aside the border. Let's put aside the ridiculousness of the completely absurd Middle East policy. Ukraine, okay, fine. The Biden question that he asked there was really quite good because all she had to do basically was say, you know what? Actually, it was the debate. It was the debate that Biden did with Trump, where we realized maybe there had been a little hints of it or something like that. Like, just give us something. What they seem unable to do is just give a little morsel of something that is true to the people that support them. Obviously, you and I and most of your audience are not Kamala Harris supporters, so I expect them to lie about everything. But I really do try to get in the mind of someone that supports today's Democrat Party. And it's like, do you like being insulted and lied to about everything all the time? Like, do you just like being kicked in the nuts over and over again, which would probably be a little more direct than what you people are doing to them? It's really absolutely insane. That question right there. And I have to say, Bret Baier, you know, people have their frustrations with Fox or with Bret or whatever. I thought he did a bang up job. He was professional. He pushed back appropriately. And you're right. Had she had any competent layer of preparation, she could have dealt with all of this stuff rather easily. But she simply does not and did not.
Okay, so Dave, could you explain this to me? Why not? And I say that I know Kamala Harris is a moron and all the other things that you and I agree on, but she is running or at least she's part of a $1 billion corporation, $1 billion plus. That's what a presidential campaign, at least on the Democrat side, is. So there are a lot of very well-paid people in her orbit. It's not like she's tripped and stumbled into an interview with Bret Baier. They knew this was coming. They knew these questions were coming. Where are the people who are supposed to be gathering her up and saying, hey, Dome, you better have an answer for this? Do these people not exist? Where are they?
Well, that's a great question, because it's like, who really is in charge right now? I would say that the reason she goes into these interviews and is not particularly prepared and can't really articulate policy is because this is pretty much what they've gotten away with forever. They can take any position on anything. They can lie about anything. I mean, think about it this way. I hate to beat this one into the ground, but Joe Biden launched his campaign, I'm talking when he first ran for president, on the Very Fine People hoax. That was literally, he said, the reason he didn't run for 4 years after Obama, but then that thing happened in Charlottesville, very fine people on both sides, and then he ran for president. So he ran the first time on something that was so easily debunked as a lie. The reason I mention that is the machine runs cover for them. So when you ask, well, how is she not prepared? How did nobody sit her down and say that? How does she not think about it? I think they are so fat on the lies and getting away with it that they think basically she can Venn diagram and circular logic, and I'm from a middle-class family, her way out of anything. And Jesse, I hate to tell you, she's kind of right, because we will see what happens.
Oh gosh, we sure will. All right, so it appears that it almost appears to be a focused effort out of the Harris campaign now, and the Joy thing clearly did not work, and now they're kind of going with the more nasty confrontational route, like she tried to do it right here.
The first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the elite. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
and they didn't bring up that bill. I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Dave, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Again, I know we're going to go back to the same thing. Who thought that was a good idea? It doesn't look good. It doesn't land well. Outside of the hag feminists who drive Subarus, nobody cheers when they see this stuff. Who told them that was a good idea?
Look, if you're talking about the interview itself, I think in a weird way it was like, we'll just throw her out to this. She'll do her usual tricks and we'll be okay the day after. And that may or may not be true. I don't know that the polls change that much because of a good appearance or a bad appearance. As it pertains to the border, though, look, this is just another one of those things where the Democrat policies make no sense. Donald Trump was president for 4 years. The border was pretty good, and they called him Hitler and a white supremacist the entire time. Joe Biden comes in. First thing he does, he reverses, I think it's 64 executive actions within a week. And he was very proud to do it. You may remember the video with the mask and sort of sounded like the Crypt Keeper while he was doing it. And then we know that about 10 to 12, it sounds like even maybe 15 million people, including Venezuelan gang members and murderers and rapists and a whole bunch of other not great people, have come into this country. She then goes on The View and says she wouldn't do anything different than Joe Biden. Then she also says we needed the bipartisan border bill passed, which of course we didn't need because it's one of the few jobs of the executive, the president, to take care of the border. So every single thing they say is a lie. The challenge for all of us on the other side of this is, how do we just not respond to the lies? Because otherwise we'll just do this for the rest of our lives and things will continually get worse. I think the silver lining at the moment is that an awful lot of people are waking up to this. It is, even in my own circles, and I know we all live in our own bubble and all that, I don't know that I know one person voting for her. I knew a lot of people that voted Democrat last time that had Trump derangement syndrome that either are going to begrudgingly vote for him or some of them very excitedly vote for him for the first time. I don't know anyone. I just don't know anyone in my circles that is voting for Kamala and proud to say that they are.
Okay, why? What are the reasons they give? Because you ask me, I'm going to be very practical about the whole thing. I'm not some Trump superfan fanboy. He's great on the border, better on foreign policy. Maybe we get some sort of deep state drainage, but at least it's better, significantly better than what we had. I can tell you exactly why I'm voting for him. But these people, look, you see the RFKs, the Tulsis of the world. You're a former lib, but that was long ago. We don't have to get into that. Why are the people who weren't voting for him before excited to do so now? Is it her or is it him? What is it?
Well, I think the Tulsi and RFK thing is the perfect avatar for this, because it's like, here you have a guy whose name is Kennedy, which is the name associated with the Democrats more than literally any other last name. And you have Tulsi, who just 4 years ago ran for president as a Democrat. And what they're now saying is, hey, free speech, anti-war, clean up the Middle East, just stop this nonsense with all the extraneous wars. What the hell's going on in Ukraine? All the rest of it. We can go through the line. But what's bringing them all together actually is a love of country. I was at this Rescue the Republic event in D.C. a couple of weeks ago with RFK and with Tulsi and Brett Weinstein and Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand. I mean, a really wide swath of people from across the political spectrum. And there were people there that had never voted for Trump before, applauding RFK as he's talking about how he's going to make America healthy again, and they're wearing MAGA hats. There's something that is now transcending politics. And the other side of it, what is it that you're voting for if you like Kamala Harris? I get it. What you're voting for is you hate Trump, so that's a certain amount of people. And then for the rest of them, it's just like, I don't know, you don't really understand what the role of government is. That could be. I mean, a lot of people aren't that bright. You kind of actually are a Marxist, maybe. You do want to upend the United States of America, and you're not proud of this country. I guess it could be. But in some ways, this is what the natural end of this intersectional alliance that they put together was. You were going to have all of these crazy competing interests. None of it was going to make sense. And now you've got what appears to be the Arab Muslim population of Michigan voting more for Trump because they're not even happy with Kamala. I mean, the whole thing it's rather extraordinary and should be studied for years to come.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we can wrap up with this, but the Democrat war on faith, they have for years at least attempted, even Joe Biden at least attempted in some sort of a way. I'm a Catholic, I'm a practicing Catholic. You at least knew you had to kind of check that box where maybe, no, you're not Billy Graham, but I don't hate you and your God and your religion and your belief system. And you want to talk about mask off now. They really can't even pretend anymore, Dave. How did that happen so fast?
No, it really is incredible, and people should be talking about it more, because if you think about it, they've clearly gone, let's say, anti-Christian, right? I mean, I think in many ways, when they come off as very obviously anti-white, what that means is Christian. So that's one part. The anti-Jewish part is very, very obvious, especially in light of October 7th, this administration's treatment of Israel and the fact that, it's basically Democrat foot soldiers that are, rallying for Hamas in these streets. So that's okay. That's the Christians and the Jews. The interesting thing now is the Muslims, because the Muslims you generally would not have thought would be for Donald Trump, perhaps because of foreign policy, but they're not happy with the Biden administration because of whatever's going on with Israel and Gaza and Hamas and all that. So the point is, if you just pander to communities, at some point, people don't want to be pandered to anymore. It's sort of why black people seemingly are waking up to what's going on with Kamala too. They don't want to be talked down to. You better vote for me or you ain't black. He did it once and it kind of worked, but now Obama's busting it out and it feels old and tired. So I'm feeling pretty good about things. That being said, what the hell the surprise is going to be, or what else could happen, or assassination attempt number 3, or God knows what.
No doubt about it. Dave, my brother, thank you. As always, you look great. Keep up the carnivore diet. All right, we'll be back. What's coming in November, as I said, is a stress test of all stress tests. If the United States of America can watch this hag lie her way through a presidential campaign after they handed her the nomination, and the United States of America decides they hate Trump too much and they're going to vote for her, then we deserve everything that's coming. This is a stress test. We have failed stress test after stress test, from COVID to George Floyd. We keep failing stress tests. This is a big one. Let's hope we don't fail. All right, we'll do it again.